What's going on, everyone? I'm Encore. This is Tomorrow Never Comes. And this video is about why are you investing? And it's a question that all of us should ask ourselves. And it's a question I never did, especially not when I started. A little bit about my investing background or story is that I actually got into investing in 2020 during everything that happened. With things being shut down, and I decided that the stock market was a great place to start at that time, just because it was one of those black swan moments where the market was tanking or had tanked quite a bit. But it's something that we all know in the long run, or at least that's what they say, the experts, is that it always upticks. Right? The trend always is an upward trend over the long period of time. Maybe not in the short to medium term, but definitely in the long term. So there was no guarantee that the markets were going to do well as quickly as they did back then. But what had happened was that we had invested through financial advisors previously for several years and didn't care. I did not care why, or I didn't care what they did. I pretended that I understood what they were talking about when I didn't. It was just one of those things, you set it and forget it. And so when I decided to take control, I still did not have a clear. And I always hate the why part, because you don't need a why to start, but there should be something in your mind as to why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you just invest in all different things without really any plan in place. That was me. And then through there, I got into the crypto space. And again, it was more about, well, things are doing well at the time. Let's just get in here. I love the underlying technology, but there still wasn't a plan in place or a reason for me, big picture of why I was doing what I was doing. Minus the blanket, minus the blanket reason, which is to make money. I mean, that's what we all do. I don't care what you invest in. The goal usually is to make some form of return. Whether it's a capital gains return, like you get profit on the actual trade itself, or it's giving you some kind of cash flow. That's generally what's happening, right? But what are you going to do with that, and how much do you need? So I want to go through some questions, and maybe this will give you who are watching a little time to reflect on why you're investing, and some other questions that I have here, because this is what I'm starting to do here. So I mean, first thing is like, why are you investing, period? Okay? Is it because you want to have a lifestyle where you travel all the time? Do you want to be able to, have breakfast at home and lunch in Paris on your private jet? Do you just want to be able to leave what you're doing now and spend time with your family, your kids, or your spouse, significant other, whatever it is, and you don't want to do anything else? You just want to be able to live, leisurely. Right? Do you want to invest so you can have, a sum of capital, a sum of money that you can then go and do other things with, like start a business or invest in startups, be an angel investor? Like, all these questions or all these scenarios are based off of one simple question: why are you investing? And I think it's very important that we all ask ourselves, what is, quote unquote, our end goal? Now, things always change. Right? The 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, those can all change. That's fine. And you don't have to stick to that. But what's the reason behind the investment? Right? Because at the end of the day, and maybe it's even that, hey, I want to stay in the job that I have, but this is just a hobby. It's fun. But you got to be real with yourself then. Right? Then this is like a hobby. It is a hobby. So it's not serious. You may not make serious gains. And if you do have losses, then you got to be okay with that, because it's a hobby. So just very important question is like, why are you investing? I don't even care if you're investing $100 or if you're investing $500, right? Whether it's real estate, whether it's crypto, whether it's stock market, or whatever it is, you got to ask yourself, why am I giving this money up? What am I doing? What do I want in return? And not even just the immediate return. What do I want in general, right? What's my outcome, at least right now? So I think it's very important that we have that question answered, at least in some degree, or maybe not answered, at least thought about, right? Pose that question to yourself. And then from there, is, do you have a number? Now, I had a great chat with a friend of mine, and we went through all this, and he mentioned something, and he mentioned that, for us men, for the most part, hitting 50 is a big deal, right? It's like that's our midlife crisis, and you understand that the years you've had are more than the years you may have going forward. So a very good likelihood. So it kind of puts things into perspective, and then finance-wise or goal-wise or things you always wanted to do, they all kind of, focus in on. It's kind of like it narrows down. The window narrows down to all these things that you never probably would have contemplated in your 30s, and probably just started in your 40s, if that, right? So it's one of those things. So I had a chat with him, and he's a 46-year-old guy, and he's like, hey, by 50, I do have a number. I do have a number that allows me to do what I always want to do. And here's a very interesting part, is that you may be in the same position as him in terms of everything looks great on paper, right? You got a job, you've been in the job for a while, you get a steady paycheck, you get a pension plan or some sort of benefits, you do have work-life balance, you have everything. And so when you complain to somebody, they're like, man, what are you complaining about? Your life is perfect. And so while things look perfect on paper, there's still this feeling of, I'm not fulfilled. And that's the whole part of why are you investing? And a lot of times, and him included, that investment, those investments that you're making, is so that at some point in time you hit a specific number, which then you can do the things that you want to fulfill yourself. So even though you have everything, and people, and that's really the frustrating part, is that you can never complain, because people are like, why are you complaining? Your life's perfect. Okay, so he has a number, and it was 10 million. And here's one thing I do encourage all of you, is to not worry about how that number is perceived by somebody else. So when him and I were having the conversation, he made sure that he set up the answer to this question by saying, you probably think it's ridiculous or not achievable, something along those lines. And I'm like, okay, what's the number? And then he said 10 million, and it was nothing. Not that the number's not anything, but it's not something that's not achievable. It's not, and it doesn't even matter what I think. But at the end of the day, whatever number it is for you, you should think about that as achievable. And I trumped him, because he was like all worried that I think he's crazy. And I said, look, I had a 10-year plan that I have to have I will create $1 billion in assets, or own $1 billion. That doesn't mean I'm going to have $1 billion in cash or anything like that. But I want to provide so much value that it's at least 1 billion of assets that I own. And so he was like, oh, okay, well now 10 million doesn't sound so ridiculous, right? But it doesn't even matter if I said it was 1 million or 5 million. His number is his number. Your number is your number. So don't sit there, and whoever you're talking, if you are speaking to anybody, they don't need to validate it. It doesn't matter what they think. Whether it's achievable, not achievable, ridiculous, or not big enough, that's your number. So I just want to put that out there, that think about it. What is that number that's going to allow you to do all the things that you're doing? What's the number that you have that's going to allow you to do the things that are going to fulfill you? So the reason for investing, what is the outcome? What's the goal? Do you have one? And that's fine. If you just want to say, I just want to be filthy rich, I mean, I would say narrow that down, right? Really try and think about this. This is a great thought exercise. Okay, so just remember, whatever your number is, don't validate or try and get it validated from somebody else. If you do speak to somebody, don't set it up and say, hey, you probably think this is crazy. That means you don't believe it. Okay, so I don't want you guys to do that. Just say the number if you have one. Okay. So then the next question is, do you really need that amount? So for him it was 10 million. For me it was 1 billion. Now for me personally, I'm not saying I need 1 billion to do the things I want to do. I'm saying I want to provide so much value that in return, or somehow, some way, I have $1 billion of financial assets, or assets I should say, that are worth 1 billion plus. So it's a little bit different. I'm not trying to say I need that to to retire or do it. That's not it. But for him, it was. For him, 10 million was what he needed in order to, all the things that he wanted to do, spend time with the family, go on vacations, not have to worry about money. That was his number. But here's the thing. I had another conversation with somebody, actually yesterday, like a brother to me. He is a brother to me. And we talked about, well, do you really need the number you think you need to do what you want to do? Right? Like if it's 10 million, do you really need the 10 million? Like if it's 5 million, if it's 1 million and you're getting interest on it, or somehow you're getting 200 to 400,000 a year, do you need 10 million? So it's one of those things that put a number down and then think about, well, am I just kind of saying that number? Like even for me, I said $1 billion, but we're all kind of doing these 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion, nice round numbers. Why do we need that? So kind of check that and say, well, do I even really need that in order to do the things that I want to do, right? So I want to invest for this outcome. I have a number that's going to make that outcome possible. But then really look at, do I really need that number to make that outcome possible? Okay? And then here's a really good one. Is that, are you part-time or are you full-time investing? And this is, this is going to go on to the next point here. But this should play a factor. Again, is it a hobby for you? Are you full on trying to achieve what you want through your investments? Now, that may not be possible because in order to invest, you may need that full-time job that you have. And so that takes all your attention. And so you just invest what you can, when you can, and whenever you have the bandwidth. Okay? But understand that when anything is part-time or it's set and forget, you're going to take a hit on the performance for the most part. Because either you don't have the bandwidth to understand what you're investing in and can be nimble and make moves, or you just say, here, Mr. or Mrs. Financial Advisor, you take it and you do what you think is right. And that's not a winning strategy over the long haul. You don't know what's happening with your money. It usually does not work out. Okay, so I think that's also, and then if you are part-time or you do trade as a hobby, do you even want to transition to make it full-time, right? So just like whatever job that you're in now, if you were to do that part-time, you probably wouldn't have reached the level that you have. So same thing with your investing. If you're only dedicating a little bit of thought or not even any at all, it's on autopilot, chances are of you hitting that number that you need to do the things that you want to do, you may not hit it, or if you do, it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Okay? And then I'll say this, is that do you know your sector? So a lot of people say, I want to be in real estate, or they invest in real estate deals, or stock market, or crypto, or whatever it may be. But it sounds better. It just sounds good. Like you don't know anything about it. Again, this goes back to, are you actively investing in it yourself? Do you learn, like the stock market, do you learn the things people look at to evaluate a company? If you're in real estate, do you look at the deals yourself to see, is this a viable deal? And then in crypto, I mean, are you just putting money into the next headline pitches you or your friend tells you, and you're not looking at the fundamentals, you're not doing the research? So all these things, you got to be wary of what you're investing in. And this kind of goes back again to, you just give it to somebody else to do it for you. It's a lot easier, right? But your results are going to most likely take a hit because of that. All right, so I think it's an important question to ask yourself as well. And then here's one that actually came to me. Well, it also has to do with money mindset. So all of us, myself included, you, me, and most of the world, we do have a number that we want to hit. And we spend our entire life or decades or several years focusing on that number. We're trying to achieve something. But we never give thought to what happens once you hit that number. Once you get to where you want to get to, then what? Right? And there's differences, and Grant Cardone always says is that, earning money is just one aspect of it, right? Then you got to keep it, and then the last part is you got to multiply it. And so what happens with a lot of us is we get to a certain number or a certain level, and we end up right back where we started. Why? And we wonder, why is that? Because you feel a level of success, a sense of accomplishment, but you never planned for, you never thought about what you're going to do once you hit that number. And so your default is to do the things that you're doing that got you there, but that's not what's going to maintain and multiply your success. So you have a couple of pitfalls and you're right back to where you started, and now you're trying to build back up to that number. So these are all questions that, I think about now, right? And where I want to go. And then, like I said, for men, I mean, once, like I'm 43, well, we'll be turning 43, but you get in those 40s, especially 45 to 50, and that 50 starts to loom larger and larger, and you really need to take stock with them. What are you doing with your investments? That's it. Like, what are you doing with it? Why you want to do them? And here's what I will say. Why I love crypto and, the entire space of blockchain and Web3 is because it's such a new sector. It's such a new asset class compared to stocks and real estate and bonds and things like that. That yes, it's volatile, but you have the ability to make gains much faster than the other ones without having to put down an immense amount of capital. Okay, upfront money. If you want real estate, you need a down payment. If you're in stocks, like people in the stock market, you brag about if you make a 20% return. 20%. Okay, you will need quite a bit of capital upfront in order for you to hit massive amounts of returns in the next 10 years. So what do they always say? Well, whatever you're investing in, you're looking at 20 to 30 years out. Look, I don't know if I'm going to be around in 20 to 30 years. There's no guarantee I'm going to be around at 65, 70. Even if I am, what's the quality of my life? So this is not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means. Okay, but we are in a time with this opportunity of creating financial freedom and generational wealth in a much shorter span of time. And that's through crypto. Okay, it's a viable, thriving asset class. And it's only going to grow from here on out. So to get in early, you have to deal, that volatility is the price of admission. That's the price of generational wealth. So that's me though, right? That's crypto. And that's, this is not financial advice to anyone watching now. But these are the things you need to ask yourself. These are the things that I wish I had asked myself. And if you are under 40 and you're watching this, man, be ahead of the game. Have this stuff at least thought about. It's going to help you in the moves that you make, the losses you're willing to incur, because if you invest, there will be losses, and then what you're willing to do in order to get the gains and stick it out and make it happen. So these are just questions that I had floating around that I now try and answer, and these are the questions that I have with people around me so that we're all having some sort of focus when we are doing investing. Okay, so hopefully you guys have this ironed out, and if not, now's a good time to start. So like, share, subscribe if you found this valuable. Okay, and hopefully you guys have some answers for yourselves, and feel free to leave some comments below about some of the answers to these questions. If you have a number, what that number would be, that'd be amazing. All right, so just remember, tomorrow never comes. Take action, invest in yourself today, and I'll see you guys in the next video.